Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Classy Nerd Talk, where we talk to you nerdy. Actually, today's going to be a special thing. Usually
it's about time we did the special, isn't it, guys?
Yeah.
This is going to be Spooky Nerd Fest time.
Yes, it is. It's that time of year. It's Halloween time.
Yes.
So we like to do, we decide that we're going to start doing these specials every year, as long as the channel durates or whatever. But we thought, me and Titan were like, hey, that'd be really cool if we did like a top 10 horror list of like our favorite like films.
Okay.
And
count down to Halloween, basically.
Yeah, so we'll be breaking this up in a couple videos so that we can get through them, because there's a lot of stuff, and we'd like to talk about things, some of the things that, that some of our experiences watching those films, like, and also too, you could have this for like your, you could add these movies to your top 30 movies to watch during October. So
hey,
they do like they do like a countdown on like certain other places.
Oh yeah, add that to the list. Sounds good.
Yeah, so let's get forward. So we're going to kind of just do this. Usually when we do the then and now, it's more of like, I'm then, you're now. Well, I'm now and you're then. Sorry. But we're going to throw that out the door this time because it is a special, and we're going to just do the top 10 horror films that have influenced us that we thought were really cool.
Yeah. Before we do that, though, we'd like to go ahead and get some honorable mentions here between the two of us. I think I've talked a few times, I'm not a horror fan person for the most part. I know growing up as a kid, I watched a lot of different stuff. Usually had my brother there with me and stuff. And, if you're watching on TV, you had commercials to kind of break it up stuff as opposed to going theaters. We never went out much, that kind of thing. But it's kind of neat to know when we look through this list and we were kind of coming up with stuff, some of the things that, because yours is going to be more of the modern age and mine's going to be more of the classic stuff. Mm-hmm. But how we do overlap a lot because we talked and there was a lot of stuff that you've seen, I've seen, that are even newer ones that we're like, yeah, that's a good horror movie. Yeah. That kind of stuff. So that being said, I think my honorable mention list is a little bit longer than yours. So I don't know if you want to go first or me go first. Because I figured that we could mention the movies and maybe talk just briefly about them, how it affected us or what we thought about it, that kind of thing. And then we're going to go from there. Hopefully, in our top 10 countdown, we're going to get 10 through 7 with the honorable mentions and time span. And then next week, we'll hit 6 through 1. So also on this list, I believe there is one movie that that made both our list, which is kind of cool. I don't think that's going to show up today, but it probably will be next week.
Yeah. So let's actually, you start on your honorable mention list because it's a lot longer. So we'll
a couple. I mean, it's like a couple of the brief things I just mentioned, a couple brief things and stuff. But one down at the bottom of the honorable mention list is the movie The Birds from 1963. Again, as a kid, I watched a lot of these movies, and I did. Oh, I know there was one here I was going to list on here. Doll movies. That was the kind of stuff that really creeped me out the most as a kid. So I tried to stay away from that stuff. So the other ones on this list here that I watched growing up. Be more in the line of horror stuff, but a lot of people mention The Birds, 1963 as a horror movie. I never thought it was. I do know now, though, if I ever see a bunch of crows getting on the by the farm field or gathering up on a power line, or I remember when I was working on one of my jobs, they used to all navigate to the backside of the building.
Oh, wow.
And I'd be like, wow, deja vu, kind of stuff. It was just real creepy. It's like, what are all these birds here for? And of course, all those vivid imaginations where the birds come flying down the chimney and attacking in the house and stuff. I'm like, no, thank you. I'm going back inside. That kind of stuff. So that's kind of where I think about the birds. But, again, as we go through this list, let us know what you think about these things and also post what your favorite horror movies were. The next up I had on my list was The Thing from 1982, which was a remake from the 1950s movie, which I love dearly because, I'm a classic guy because I grew up with those things. Mm-hmm. This one took it to a new level. You still had, one was the Arctic, one was the Antarctic, so you still were in the snow.
Yeah.
However, with Kurt Russell, he really does a good job in this role. And the creatures in here, the alien, where it could take on different forms and stuff, was a lot scarier for the time. Now, granted, I think they pulled a few ideas from Alien when they made these things, but again, it's enough to where it's creep you out. And I remember one time when they were trying to find out, I think towards the end, who was the alien at the end, and they were jabbing him with something, and the blood would spurt up or do something weird, or the body would do weird stuff. That was pretty creepy. That was pretty interesting how they did some of the special effects for that. So that made my list. Another one I had was Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Now, there's two of those, 1956 and a remake in 78. I will tell you guys right now, if you haven't seen either one of them, watch them both. Both of them are just as creepy or scary or make you think as one or the other one. Mm-hmm. They are really, really good movies. And they're just good movies just to watch in general, too. Not just for because they're not horror, but there are a bit of scariness in there just to think about that. You know, somebody falls asleep and next thing you know, the person's your best friend is actually acting strange and you don't really kind of know why, but they're not them. So, another one was The Dead Zone, 1983. All I'm going to say here, Christopher Walken. That does it for you. He is a cool, great actor, but he can really scare you. So, another one I had was Poltergeist, 1982. That was kind of scary because, everybody has a little bit of a fear if they realize the supernatural world exists and that kind of stuff. So with ghosts and stuff, it kind of creeps you out a little bit, makes you a little scared, especially if you're watching these things at night. That's the biggest thing. If you're alone, especially if you're alone at home, 1 a.m. in the morning watching a scary movie, you hear sounds outside. If it's a windy day, that really makes the tone really, really jump at you. I put this on here as honorable mention because it's one of the big movies. Mm-hmm. Halloween, 1979. Mm. Now, to get a little piece of information here, don't tell anybody, but I first watched this at a church event. Should not have been doing that there, but hey, people brought in movies for a lock-in kind of thing, and we're like watching this. And I've seen it since, but it's not scary. The scariest part of it to me is probably some of the music. But I don't... For the most part, if I remember right, there's probably not hardly even any blood in there, is there?
Actually, no, not really. Like, it was more of just like that suspense. But it brought like the whole slasher film type deal.
Correct, yeah. It started out with the slasher thing, which of course I think today is a little over the top.
Yeah, it kind of brought the iconic scary person like Jason, Freddy, and all of them. Because what it was like a killer that was going around killing all these characters. Yeah. And he was the main person. And then later on, you come to find out that this person, actually went through like a bad, background, or he just, he won't die. Yeah. That's the scary part, is like he won't die, and he stalks people. So like they show shots.
Well, that's the thing too, because it kind of puts you back in the thing. If you're thinking about, okay, you got this neighbor who lives back off the road somewhere, kind of to himself, acts a little strange compared to most social people. You're like, ooh, that's kind of puts you in a mind of those kind of things. So it was kind of, could be, if you think about a little scariness, but to me, when I watched it at the time, I was probably 16. I was like, okay.
The scariest part about that movie to you is probably the William Shatner mask.
Oh, yeah, you brought that up. That's right. Because his mask is actually William Shatner. And I didn't know about that for years and found out one day that they actually needed a mask for him. And I don't remember the story of who figured it out, but hey, look at this. And they painted it white and they're like, that's pretty cool. Where'd you find that? Oh, it was a William Shatner mask we had. Crazy stuff you find out, too. And also, to top off my honorable mention list is the Universal Classics. And I think there's a few other classics along the same line. It was Frankenstein, Wolfman, Invisible Man, those kind of things. A lot of people say Frankenstein was scary. Again, I watched it as a kid. Probably the scariest part was when he was hitting the girl in the water. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Not really a lot to me was that scary in the Frankenstein movies. Granted, maybe because I watched them when I was younger and other type things scared me more. Don't really know. Maybe it's because I watched them on Big Chicken and Houlihan at the time. You always had the jokes and the commercials in between stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Can't really say. But I want to put them on mention because I love those movies. They do have a bit of scariness to them. And I'll tell you, the one thing I did stay away from in my honorable mention and in my list are zombies. I don't do zombies. So.
See, actually, what's really funny is Frankenstein's not scary for me, in my opinion.
Well, that's good.
I think it was ruined probably because Mel Brooks made Young Frankenstein, and that movie's just downright hilarious, in my opinion.
True, it is. Now, did you see that first, or did you see Frankenstein first?
I actually saw Young Frankenstein first. Okay. That's what probably did the cake in. So I read the book like when I was like a kid, and then I was like, wow, this is a really cool book. But overall, like when I watched Young Frankenstein, I laughed the whole time. So when you do that, you kind of dilute that feeling that you'll get from that horror film. So like,
I could see that. Well, the coolest thing probably was because a lot of stuff that I grew up with, black and white. Mm-hmm. So Young Frankenstein is black and white. So that would kind of throw you, maybe make you think that it was made a long time ago when it really wasn't. So you go from that to just seeing Frankenstein. Oh, cool monster. Yeah, a little more effects, a little more scariness, but not much to really make you,
yeah,
that kind of stuff. So that was pretty cool. Again, there's my list. You guys can tell me what you think of my honorable mentions, and then also I'll go over a couple movies here, and then we'll hit our top 10.
Okay, so actually, I only have a couple honorable mentions because I look at it as like a film goer aspect.
You like all this stuff, all the hollow. It's like
not all of it. It's just there is some things that like I have problems with, and one of them are actually on my honorable mention list. But I have to give it to this movie. But let's go to the first movie. The first honorable mention I have is actually 2017 It. The film It that just came out.
I was going to say 2017. That's now.
It was based off of the book that Stephen King did. Okay. And it was also based off of the movie TV series It. Okay. That was like a short movie. They just bundled up, and that starred Tim Curry.
Sorry to interrupt you. Isn't this the clown movie?
Yes.
I don't like clowns either, guys. Sorry.
So overall, actually, most people that went in to go see that film, they were like, "Oh, this is going to be terrifying." But after I watched that film, I wasn't terrified. But what I love about this movie is this movie wasn't really about that terrifying clown. Yeah, it's just certain people don't like clowns, and some people, they don't mind clowns, and I don't mind clowns. But what's cool about this movie, it was more about the adventure of like trying to solve everything. It was like a coming to age film, like these kids. It kind of reminded me kind of like Stand By Me in a way, but like these kids were trying to battle something that like.
So basically, you're saying it really isn't a scary movie. It's kind of like more of a.
Yeah, it was just like
think of the term
it's more of like a thriller in my opinion, but like I really liked it because like the shots were beautiful, the humor was spot on and very adult like. Because so I don't think you'll think it's terrifying. There was only like one part where it scared. I was like, oh, holy crap! There was a part where like she just gets done doing something with her dad, and she turns around, he's there, and you didn't expect him to be here. So you're like, oh wow,
Like in real life, if somebody pops up out of nowhere, you kind of get scared.
But overall, I actually laughed most of the movie because like it was just kind of hysterical, but it was good. Like I liked it. The first 10 minutes of the film, like. Sucks you right in with Georgie and the whole sewer thing, which is like a big thing for the original It movie. But moving on, this one's actually kind of not like a horror film, but I like it because it has aspects of a horror film, and that is American Psycho with Christian Bale. I read the book a long time ago, and I was like, wow, this book is crazy. So I was like, oh, they came out with a movie, and it was Christian Bale, and it's about like this guy that's a huge psychopath. And he believes in like, oh, well, I have to be better. Like he like gets set off at the most weirdest things. Like there's a part where he gives a business card to someone. And the business card is like, ooh, he's got a good business card. Then someone else, because it's a big corporate guy, so it'd be like, look at my business card. And it's 10 times better. And Patrick Bateman's like, and he ends up like murdering those people for that. He ends up like randomly murdering all these people. But he's so self-loathing that character, like when you watch that movie, you're just like, wow, what drives this person to do that? And then what's really cool is like the twist at the end. Because there's a huge twist. I'm not going to spoil it because you need to watch American Psycho. But the twist was so... You don't know how to take it. There's like, you're just like, I don't know what just happened.
Oh, okay.
So you have to do a lot of watching and researching on that. And like, I'm not going to ruin it for everyone, but if you haven't watched American Psycho, love American Psycho. My second one would probably have to be Ghost Ship. Ghost Ship on my top honorable mentions.
I think I did see that one.
The only thing that I remember is this movie came out when I was about 13 or 14. And I remember my cousin having a copy of it, and she would never let me watch it because I was terrified of a certain horror movie, which we'll talk about here soon, that actually drove me to be terrified forever as a kid.
Wow.
So what happened was in Ghost Ship, I remember just one scene, and it's the beginning scene where they're all dancing on the boat, and the line snaps.
Oh, that's right. I remember.
Everyone in half.
Yeah.
And
in half of their head.
It was like their heads.
Yeah.
I think. And the only person that survives is like a little girl because she's so small that the line didn't get her. And it kills all these people, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But that's what I remember of that movie. So like I put it on honorable mention because that's something that's driven in my head. Every time someone says Ghost Ship, bam, that comes in.
Wow. That would be kind of, even to think of that. So if you were that person and that happened, the trauma you would just get from like, oh, grip.
Which is, overall, I don't remember most of the rest of the movie, so the movie's probably not that great of a movie. It's just that part was so inflicting. Now, my last honorable mention.
Okay.
I hate this movie.
You hate a movie?
I hate this movie.
Oh my gosh, here it comes.
But This movie is one of the most genius movies I've ever seen in my life.
Okay.
How I say that is it is Paranormal Activity. Paranormal Activity was a movie that was only made for like a small budget. I think it was like close to like $5 to $10 grand that they made.
You can kind of see that in the previews, the trailers you saw, and that was why I was like...
It brought back the scariness of found footage, because like most found footage films, like The Last Broadcast and Blair Witch Project, were his first found footage films, and then they kind of like went away. Well, this one brought it back to a perspective, but this guy filmed this, and he had a small budget, but why it's so genius is because he took that money and made millions off of that movie.
Oh, wow.
So it was getting to a point where people were terrified, and they actually made a whole bunch of sequels, and they're making more, supposedly. So it made, like, itself the crap trilogies and everything, sagas and stuff, with, like, you know, that. So it keeps going on and on. It just ruins the film completely. But I have to put it on here because it is an honorable mention.
Okay.
So
there's some scariness to it, though.
Yes, there is some parts where, like, you know, the ending's really weird. But what I liked about this whole movie was the movie, when they came out on DVD, it was more of like, they kind of hush-hushed it. And they just, the menu for the DVD was just pretty standard cut.
Okay.
And they had another ending. And supposedly at the end of the movie, I'm not going to spoil too much, but something happens to the lady and she like ends up like murder happens. And then there's a second part where she kills herself. And you're like, oh, okay. But it was so funny because every one of my friends were like, dude, that was real life stuff. I was like, excuse me? And they're like, yeah, the LAPD and them showed up. I was like, look, a scary movie that's real doesn't have an alternate ending. You know?
Oh,
and then they're like, oh, duh. You know, so I thought that was pretty funny. But I have to give props to that movie because it made a lot of money and it was innovative at that time.
Well, that's cool, yes.
So,
I'm not going to watch it.
Let's start out with our top 10 list after we got out for our honorable mentions.
Cool.
So what's your first number top 10?
Number 10. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do here since I look like I'm short compared to you. And, I just ruined my chair. I'm going to see if I can make myself taller, which is my segue into my movie.
Oh.
I don't want to be like a midget or something here because my number 10 in my top 10 is Freaks, 1932. And I'll tell you, there were some things as a kid that did scare me, that I did not like and will never watch again. And when I looked up a piece of information about this movie, it brought back those feelings inside of me again. Okay, this is an American MGM movie from the pre-censorship code of Hollywood. So I think it was like 35, 40, something like that when they started doing the codes. But they weren't really strictly enforced, if I remember right, until like about 1945. So you still had that lag period, but this was before that. And I do have a couple movies at home of a different genre from the pre-code movies and stuff that you can see just by reading the labels. It's like, all kinds of weird stuff happens in these movies. Anyway, the original version of this film was 90 minutes long, but it was considered way too shocking for people, so they hacked it up and made it about 64 minutes. And all the original footage is gone, so there's no longer anything of the original stuff that exists.
So there's no extended cut that
they
happen
got rid of it.
Nope.
Oh,
wow.
Basically, the plot's a beautiful trapeze artist wants to marry the leader of the sideshow, which includes midgets and little people, a lot of deformed people who have missing limbs, half their body's gone, things like that. And as a little kid seeing this, and you're probably talking, 5, 6 years old, it's really scary and puts these weird things in your mind. I mean, you can see all kinds of stuff growing up, but certain ones will just say, no, stay away from that. That kind of thing. So anyway, the other performers in the circus find out that she's only after his money. So I don't know if she was planning to kill him or what. I kind of forget. It's been again, I saw this, read about it, and that's about it. So again, this hits my list because of the effect it's put on me all these years from seeing that kind of stuff. So anyway, they decide they're going to do their type of justice to her and hack her up. And then one of the guys, the strong man or something, was having an affair with her when she was supposed to be marrying the owner, which was a little guy. And so they do him and stuff like that. So anyway, all the stuff they do was part of the stuff that was considered too shocking, even for the time when it was going to be released. So they cut it up, re-filmed some parts, and tried to give it a happy ending where I think they kind of meet later after leaving the circus, that kind of stuff. So, again, that's my number 10 in the movie. It's called Freaks, 1932. I'm going to say I don't really recommend it for anybody, but if you want to get kind of wigged out a little bit, go see if you can find it.
Well, actually, what's really funny about that, when you start explaining that, actually, The Simpsons do a lot of parodies and stuff.
Oh, gosh.
And they actually did a Freaks, and after you said that, they did one where Moe was the circus leader and Homer was the strong man.
Oh, yeah?
And yeah, so that, I'm going to have to look that up now.
Oh, my gosh, no. I recommend not, but that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Captain, what do you got on top 10 here? Okay. Number 10.
Okay, so remember just earlier we were talking about a movie that terrified me, as a kid. And I have to give my number 10 to Chucky.
Oh, God.
Chucky.
Doll movies? I can't listen. No.
The thing is with Chucky, why I have such a big thing is my cousin, I love dearly still.
It's her fault.
It is actually her fault. And if she's watching this, thank you. You have led this to be a top 10 because of your memory. Because what you have instilled in my mind. When I was a kid, about 5 years old, my cousin decided it would be a funny thing to lock me in her room and make me watch this movie. And locked me in the room.
Wow.
I was screaming, crying, everything. She's bawling, laughing and stuff. It was just something to torture a little kid. But the thing was like the problem why it inflicted so much scariness into me, because it's a kid and you play with toys. And having a doll like that kill people, not good for a kid that's my age.
Not good for anybody.
That movie instilled all the way until I turned about 14 years old. At that time, I couldn't even look at the front cover of the VHS. My cousin had it all the time on her shelf. I could never look at it. I was just like, ugh. And then she'd pop it in from time to time to scare me. And I'm like, no, stop. But then, when I turned 14, I was like, this is childish. I'm going to watch this film. Because this is when, my peak of horror films started going. And the reason why there was a peak of that was because my grandma, that passed away probably when I was 8 of cancer, she was a huge horror fanatic. She loved horror films. So I was like, you know what? One time when we went to go get her stuff at her house, she had a whole cassette thing. And it was just full of these recorded horror films. I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch it. So I watched movies like The Bats and, Unholy, which is a 1980s film that's really bad. But, there was a whole bunch of stuff. She liked Jason, Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street. Really cool stuff.
You just flooded your mind with all kinds of grotesque stuff just to get through it.
But I realized after I watched those films, I was like, this cannot be as bad as Chucky. These are worse than Chucky, probably. So I went back and watched Chucky, and guess what? Chucky was stupid, in my opinion, after that.
Yeah, it is. But I think it's the whole premise of a doll. Because you can think over the years, different doll ones. And I forget the one where there was a Twilight... Well, we were talking about the Twilight Zone show. There was one with the doll in that. Yeah. Or there's one with the ventriloquist dummy and those kind of things. To me, any inanimate object coming to life is a scary thought. And I'm just like, kind of falls in the line of the zombie things. Forget it.
Well, see, what also, kind of helped me through this was actually my grandma loved Tales from the Crypt.
Wow.
Tales from the
grandma?
Crypt. My grandma loved Tales from the Crypt.
Wow.
So I watched a couple episodes with her, and it kind of, spooked me as a kid. But overall, I was just like, I still love that show. Literally, I bought the DVDs of it, and I still watch it on Halloween because it's not too scary. They were, more C and B rated horror.
Yeah.
But, I like it, though. They have some interesting stories. Now, there's some ones that are pretty still freaky. I'm just like, ooh, wow.
Yeah, there are.
I remember a couple times where I've lived with a guy, and we watched them. And there was this one about a woman, and he this woman lured this guy to a mansion to murder him, and then come to find out that it was like a switch-around story. But it was so creepy.
Oh, yeah.
I was just like, ugh. And then we tried to show it to our girlfriends at the time. We're like, let's watch this. This is creepy. And they're like, this is dumb.
Yeah. My thought was always... Whenever come on watching again, another inanimate object, watching a skeleton come to life and do stuff. Now, it's cool. I mean, it's cool that, you can do that kind of stuff, animatronics and stuff. But it's just like, just to think about, all right, we're going to watch a show after you have that introduction. I'm not really sure that makes sense. But it was pretty fun.
So moving on, what's your number 9?
All right, number 9. Now, number 9, this is going to be a big one. It was really hard for me to encapsulate this together because... Again, I saw so much growing up. And again, yes, I was a fat kid in front of the TV, guys. Sorry. Still a little fat. But go ahead. All right, so my number 9, top 10 for Countdown to Horror is Vincent Price films and Hammer films. And the reason I did that, combined that like that, is because I had other stuff I wanted to get on my list. And okay, how can I encompass a certain type of genre or era of films between the 50s, 60s, and 70s that really made an impact on either the genre or in my life as well too. I mean, if you look at Vincent Price, you go with House of Wax, The Fly, House of Usher, Mask of Red Death, Abominable, Dr. Fives, and all the kind of movies and TV and theater that this man did with his look, his voice.
Yes.
You know, it just really was a lot of stuff there that he did, and he's a well-known actor for that type of stuff. So I mean, he really entered a good place there for me because again, I watched a lot of that stuff. Some of them were scary, some of them not. So a comedy of horrors. You know, I had a few creepy parts, but other than that, it was a fun movie to watch. And again, with Hammer films, now some people don't know with Hammer films, they came about in like 1938, had a little bit of lull, but with the Quartermass series. And I believe that was, I don't think I wrote the year down, probably the mid-1950s, started in what is called the Hammer horror films. And the biggest actors in there was Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, who, again, these guys became best friends because of all the movies they did for and together for the Hammer films. Yeah. You had Curse of Frankenstein, Dracula, The Mummy, a ton of other films. Really surprised me. And one of the ones which I never really knew was that they made in '66 1 million BC with Raquel Welch. I didn't realize that was a Hammer film. I was really surprised when I saw that in the list of things they did. But again, with Vincent Price films and the stuff, I mean, again, I remember like House on Haunted Hill was one of the ones that really, as a kid, it starts out, the scariest part is when it starts out. Black screen, screams and noises and stuff. And then you have, I can't think of the guy's name. He played the guy in one of the guys in Magnum, another series I liked, which I kind of was thinking now. I remember Elisha Cook. I think that was his name. He played Ice Pick in the Magnum series. So he's a really good actor, been around for a long time and stuff. But you got him talking about what's going on. His face kind of fades in and then goes away. And of course, all the cars are coming to this house on Haunted Hill to spend the night, and they're led by a limousine. Yeah. Or not a limousine, but a
hearse.
Hearse. Yeah. So again, Vincent Price did so many things. It just would just be like in the Pit and the Pendulum and things, and Dr. Fives and stuff. Just a lot of scary stuff. And Peter Cushing, of course, was Dr. Frankenstein. And what was so good about the Hammer films was that, if you remember the original Universal classic, he was just the average guy. He was a scientist. They considered mad scientist, but he didn't go mad till later in the movie. Mm-hmm. With Peter Cushing, it was more being mad the whole time, and it was more about all the steps to do this. Taking care of the heart and the mindset that he had in order to make these organs work and stuff, as opposed to, I just slap some guy together and hit him with lightning. So they really, of course, the Live Beautiful Women in the Hammer films. Hey, and there's a Facebook page for that too, if you guys ever want to look at that. But again, my number 9, Vincent Price films and Hammer horror films.
All right, so my number 9 is actually a little bit more updated than my last one. This one came out probably around the 2015 era, 2016. The movie is called The Babadook. The Babadook.
What kind of name is that?
It's actually not too bad of a name. It's kind of like, I think it's like a foreign name type thing.
I think the audience is going to have to tell us, are the names of my movies cool and you're strange, or is it just, am I missing something there? Well, I'm not sure about it, Babadook. I'm like, okay, Frankenstein, Dracula? Big difference?
This movie came out, and I never had any intentions to watching it. The only reason I watched it was actually Netflix.
Okay.
Someone recommended it to me on Netflix and said, if you like horror films, you should watch this. So I was like, okay, I ended up watching it. It's alright. It's not like my top. I like the storytelling in the whole film. I was sucked in. I really enjoyed it. But there's also, I can see where it gets a lot of hate on the internet sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it kind of draws out sometimes, and the story is all right, but it's not something that engrosses you. I liked how it was shot. But what I remember from this film is Babadook is actually like a kind of bedtime story that they tell kids about why they should go to bed. and if they don't go to bed, the Babadook will come get them.
You mean like there's monsters in a closet kind of thing?
Yeah, kind of like a boogeyman type deal. But I really liked the film. I remember most of it, but I only watched it one time, but I remember it. So that's why it's so high on my list. So I don't have too much to talk about that one on. But overall, I remember liking it a lot. And yeah, so if you haven't watched Babadook, it's still on Netflix. So yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to.
Okay. That's fine. I will.
You'll have to show me a picture. Show me a picture of it, and then we'll see. Because I'm not really sure.
Babadook's how he looks kind of drags on. Creepy. I'm not sure. Babadook's like in this black type thing, and he's got like a hat. But I think what would kill you is he has the Nosferatu hands.
Oh God! Oh, yuck!
So
Crazy.
What is your number 8?
Number 8, all-time classic. American Werewolf in London, 1981.
It's a good
People like that. You know, it's a movie about two guys. They're going to backpack in London. Why? I don't know. But then again, of course, as usual in a movie, life goes bad. And I will stop here for one thing, though. This is more of a comedy horror, which is cool because when you watch a lot of the horror films, I've noticed a pattern that maybe this one started. I don't know for sure. But people do dumb things. Again, these guys are in a pub. There, the people say, no, you can't leave because it's getting late. Of course, they know something, and oh no, that wasn't the people. The barmaid or the bartender says, you can't leave. Of course, everybody says, no, let them go. Just stay on the road. Don't go on the moors. Well, of course, I don't know I forget what happens, but of course, they're in the moors. Like, again, a stupid thing you do. Hey, don't get off the road. Okay, I would not get off the road. I mean, I guess unless something was coming at me on the road, then maybe I would run and hide behind a tree or something. But other than that. So anyway, they go off the road, get in the moors. They get attacked by a werewolf. One guy dies and one guy lives. So again, the movie next scene, he wakes up 10 days later, something like that. And of course, throughout the movie, the one guy who died comes back to tell him from the dead, hey, you're a werewolf. You need to kill yourself, blah, blah, blah. He's like, there's no freaking way I'm doing this, is what the guy says. So eventually he turns into a werewolf, I'm not going to spoil the movie. It's a good movie to watch. There are a few funny parts in it. There are a few scary parts. The biggest thing about this movie is the transformation scenes. A la Rick Baker. He is a creator extraordinaire, and in the 80s, he changed the way effects were done based on this movie and what he did to make these effects happen. And if you take from my original one as a kid, watching Wolfman and stuff as a kid, usually it was like the guy had Lon Chaney had to sit still, and then they put makeup on him, did a few more shots, but so it's kind of, and then when you speed it up, it's not so fast, but it's just kind of like bloop, 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 and you get a Wolfman. This one, you get screams and body stretches and bones breaking and all kinds of weird stuff. And you think to yourself, oh my God, how could the guy ever go back to normal after that? But it just that's for me more of the scary stuff is when they actually change into the werewolf. That really was pretty wild, pretty shocking, pretty awesome in the process. The other things to do nice about this, just hit a couple tidbits information. At the time, again, over the years, sci-fi horrors had never been real big in the movies award center. Around the 80s, they started picking up, some back in the 70s. But this got 2 Academy Awards, 4 Saturn Awards. They did a sequel in 97, American Werewolf in Paris. Never saw it, so I can't tell you about that one. They also, in 97, did a radio adaptation of the movie, which I heard was pretty good. Universal's Halloween Horror Nights in 2013 did a special based on American Werewolf in London. And then a third remake sequel was discussed between 2009 and 2016, but yet I don't know if anything is going to happen or not. Again, number 8 on my list, American Werewolf in London, 1981. Great movie.
Yeah. All right. So my number 8.
Are we talking too fast?
No. Okay. No, we're fine. Okay, so number 8 is something that I hold. It was something that innovated me as a person that likes scary movies.
Okay.
This movie it brought a certain genre to, and now it's been overplayed a lot.
Okay.
And that is Saul. Saul, the first one, a lot of gore. And the newer ones, they're mostly just gross test movies because they bring that gore factor in, which is nothing wrong if you like gore. That's your style movie. In my opinion, I really don't care too much for it. But I remember the first 2 movies. And the first 2 movies, I'm going to put both movies on here because the thing is the first 2 movies were very well thought out. And I love the first 2 movies. the whole time during the first movie, it was something new and innovative that they were talking about. This guy was going after people because they didn't really care for their life. They were more of just like these people that were just like terrible people. One, what I remember is there was two guys, and one was a photographer, and he was just, you know, dipping into people's matters and like ruining people's lives because he was like, oh, I'm gonna film this guy having sex with his, you know, his wife, his best friend, you know, and I'm gonna show it to his wife so I get money, I can blackmail. So he was all about blackmailing people. And the other one was a surgeon, which was actually played by, I always forget his name, but he played Robin Hood in Men in Tights.
Oh my gosh.
He also played a lot of other roles. But the cool thing about this movie was they're stuck in this room, and the first movie was like a low-budget shot movie, in my opinion, and I think it was a really good shot movie because the whole time it was like one room shot, and then you start figuring out that the people in the room were actually worse than what they should, and they had to go through these certain trials to get to things, and that would lead to something else. And then, I'm not going to spoil any of the first movie, but what I like about this movie is it's not just a killer trying to kill someone just because they need to be killed. He's trying to show these people that they don't celebrate their life enough. They're not good people. And he goes after those people that are terrible people and have hurt other people in the thing. That's why those people die in those films. That's the cool premise about the Saul that I liked. I was like, oh, that's something cool. You know, no one has ever thought of that in a movie before, and that's why it was so innovative at that time. Now, the biggest problem with it, in a lot of people's opinions, especially yours, is the gore factor. The gore factor kind of ruins it in a way, but I don't mind it. It kind of is just like, eh. Most people get sick and they're like, oh, it's so disgusting. I'm just like, yeah, it's Hollywood film. I don't care. You know, I've seen grosser things, so it kind of doesn't like faze me. I'm just like, oh, some guy's getting torn apart, and it's okay. But
Oh my God. Help me somebody.
they really suck this one out though.
I mean, because they made so many of them?
Yeah, so the magic goes away after probably number 3.
Okay.
And then after that, I watch them still, but I'm just like, it's not really good. There's even a part where they brought a New Kids on the Block member, Donnie Wahlberg, into the film. And I was just like, oh my gosh.
Maybe he wanted some work. Maybe he liked it.
That and the whole time as you're trying to figure out who Jigsaw the killer is. And actually, I knew, and I had a theory about who it was, and then on the final chapter, the last one they made before the new one comes out here on Halloween, it was the killer that I knew. I was like, yeah, it was him.
So, are you saying though in the first movie you never find out who the killers really are? Or they kind of show themselves in the beginning, but it's just like...
It's a twisted web movie,
okay,
where you think you know who the killer is, but he's actually a follower of the killer.
Oh.
And then you have to find out who actually has been playing this whole time. And I started researching a lot, and come to find out I knew who the killer was. And then half the internet found out too, because they're like, well, this doesn't add up. But I like films that are like that, where you have to like think about who might be this person.
Kind of the way you're talking kind of reminds me of the movie The Bone Collector, but
yeah, almost.
But yeah, I think based on the pictures, the previews, the trailers, whatever, it was like, again, more than I like to actually see or watch. And again, I don't think, and everybody has their own feelings, I don't think it's healthy if all you do is feed off of horror movies, but that's just, if you don't have a good, well-rounded thing, whether you're going to, it's like music. If you're not listening to some Beethoven along with everything else you listen to, there's something wrong with you.
All right, so moving on.
Just messing with you.
What is your
excuse me,
number
7? All right, number 7. Before we close the night out here, Kerry, 1976.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a real good one. This is actually supernatural horror, which kind of might go along with one of your honorable mentions. But this one here is actually the first adaptation from one of the works of Stephen King that's made, in well over 100 different ones done. Again, I'm a younger guy watching this stuff. Most of the movie really isn't scary. Again, the supernatural stuff's kind of spooky. The real scary stuff, of course, comes at the end. And I'll tell you guys, if you think bullying kids in school and then going to try to find a gun somewhere is the worst thing you've ever known,
then you haven't watched Kerry.
Right, you haven't watched Kerry.
Yeah.
That, I'll tell you. I mean, not everybody, but a good portion of people die, as far as I can remember. Again, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I did look up a couple notes. Excuse me. The movie's about a girl who's shy, not really good looking, but I mean, not that that's. I think that's probably why they picked her, because she's pretty plain looking. Mm-hmm. You know, Sissy Spacek. She's fairly plain looking. She's inward. She's shy. She's not one of the groups and stuff, so she gets picked on. And then after gym one day, excuse me, sorry folks, got a cold. She experiences her first period in the showers. Of course, all the girls make fun of her and tease her, and then, the coach had to come in and stop and break it up, and then they sent her home for the afternoon. And at that point in time, she's so upset, and this experience is happening, she finds that she has telekinetic powers. And it just kind of builds from there. Of course, now that you've already done something stupid to the shy girl and you bullied her a little bit in school, which she probably was anyway a little bit, now the most popular girl in school says, this is a cliche now, takes her boyfriend and says, well, why don't you take her to prom? Make her feel happy. Of course, in movies, the mistakes you make. I mean, in real life, probably wouldn't happen, but in movies, it always does. So, again, when you do that, they go to the prom, and then, of course, everything from there takes a nosedive into hell, and literally that's probably about where some of them end up after this kind of incident. Excuse me. Really cool movie, a bit scary. Again, towards the end there, what's going on. I'll let you guys watch it, won't give the whole thing away. There was a remake done, bombed. Of course, it probably was. Kind of shows you. I'm not sure Hollywood knows how to pick remakes or how to redo them or rewrite them.
I think people just got to a point where, like, you shouldn't remake something unless it's, like, okay to remake. What I mean by that is, like, Kerry was a good film in its own way, and I don't think it needed to be touched. It's kind of like, let's look at The Shining, for example. Yeah. If Hollywood decided to redo The Shining, would you go watch it?
No.
No. Because what makes that movie is Stanley Kubrick's filmmaking and Jack Nicholson.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing, is you can't change something like that. It's not going to be successful. Just because it has the name and the whole story premise doesn't mean anything.
Well, the thing of it is, too, and there's a fine line between, hey, let's remake it and tell the same story over with new people, because, again, and please don't take this wrong, a lot of people today saying, well, I don't want to watch somebody else's movie. I don't want to watch an old movie. I want to watch somebody with people my generation or actors I know. And granted, there's a good basis in that. However, just to remake a movie, and we won't go to the Ghostbusters thing here, just to remake a movie because we want to have different people in it and do the same story, doesn't mean it's going to be good. Or even saying, hey, let's reboot it and do something weird, like Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Help me out here. Total Recall. Just because you want to do it because it's there. I don't know. A lot of these things that we're going to rewrite it, make it similar but different. It just to modernize it. Hey, we have new technologies that they could have used now as opposed to back then. It doesn't really work. But anyway, we do want to mention here something interesting about this movie is the closing segment, which is there's a wraparound thing after all this horrible stuff happens. There's a little kind of epilogue or whatever, see right at the end that will kind of make you jump, shock, whatever kind of thing. Sissy Spacek said that she wanted to do the scene at the end with the undead hand and arm. Brian De Palma, who's the director, says, no, I'll get a stand-in. She's like, no, it was me. I want my hand to be there. I'll do it. So they have to bury her alive in a box. He's like, I'm not doing this. He goes to her husband, you have to bury her. He goes, because I don't want to be part of that. So he buries her. However, afterwards, her husband, they have a special thing there where her hand can come up out of the ground. She's in a box, and she's like, are we ready yet? And I don't know exactly, because the information didn't go into detail, but I think he wanted to get the moment just right, because he took his time setting up the scene so that she would be ready to get out of the box. Because I'm sure, even though they're pumping in air, I'm sure you're enclosed, claustrophobic area like that, with just a certain amount of air, you're going to be like, I want to get out. And so I think that is what I think made that scene with that arm coming out of the ground, oops, spoiler, so good, so scary in that moment. So just one little piece of extra information there. So, one more thing. In case you guys don't know, if you get to see it, if you know some of these actors, this is the start of the careers for 4 people: Nancy Allen, Amy Irving, William Catt, and John Travolta. Interesting.
It was John Travolta.
Yeah.
All right. So my number 7 movie was actually a movie that got overtoned a lot. Like, it was, the movie came out and something happened in between that movie that overtoned that movie so much. Kind of like the whole thing with 9/11 and the whole, thing that they overtoned with that movie Spotlight.
Oh, yeah.
About the priests and stuff. It kind of got overtoned because something else happened.
Everything in society was going on.
Kind of dampened. And this movie's called The Green Room. And it stars Patrick Stewart, Star Trek.
Yeah,
Patrick
Next
Stewart.
Generation.
And I forget how to say his name. Anthony Kovachev? Sorry if I butcher it. He played also in Star Wars. In Star Trek.
Oh, in the reboot series, it's Chekhov.
He was Chekhov. And he actually died after making this film. Because what happened was, I think his Jeep crushed him or something like that.
Yeah, rode down the hill in his driveway and pinned him against his, I believe, his mailbox.
Yeah, so
sad thing.
This movie kind of got overtoned by his death.
Yeah.
And it kind of just fell under the radar. But this movie is phenomenal. I love this movie. Quentin Tarantino, I'm a huge fan of Quentin.
Oh, you are. You talk all the time.
He went and watched this film and said, this film is probably one of the most written stories I've seen in a long time. And he says it's really good. So that intrigued me to go watch it. And then I was like, I'll wait. But then my buddy went and watched it and said, you need to watch it now. You need to watch that film. So I don't remember too much of it because at the time that I did watch it, but I remember loving it. I was working 80 some hours a week. And
I remember that when you were
job.
Yeah.
So I kind of was drained on stuff. So when I watched this, I don't remember too much of it, but I do remember that Patrick Stewart is part of a neo-Nazi group, and somehow Chekhov guy, Anthony, whatever his name is, actually...
Just say Anthony.
Yeah, I'll just put Anthony. He kind of gets swirled up in this whole anti-Nazi thing.
Oh, sucked into it?
Yeah, more like they start hunting him down and his friends.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's so well directed, really good. I've been looking actually this month. I do the top 30 horror films to watch, and this is actually coming up next week. And I really can't wait to watch it. It's really well good. It's not too scary. There's really no scariness to it. It's just more of a thriller to me. Mm-hmm. But I love it. The aspect of the movie, the film was shot beautifully. Patrick Stewart, man, you can tell that he wanted this role because when he plays this role, I was like, wow, this is... It kind of reminded me of the drill instructor from Full Metal Jacket.
Oh, okay.
I forget his name.
He was in What? No, wasn't
he did Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and that was the remake, and that was the only thing that was good about that. He made one of the best roles, and I remember that movie just for him. But it kind of reminded me of Patrick Stewart that way. Patrick Stewart did really well in this film. I was just like, wow, this guy can play other roles than just being this, because he doesn't do a lot of movies per se. It's more theater and stuff. But overall, this movie, I had to give it my number 7 list. And the reason why I had to give it my number 7, even though I'm talking so highly of it, is just because the thing is all these other movies from here on out, I've watched multiple times.
Okay.
I've viewed multiple times, and I love them, and they're sitting down on a shelf in my room. Green Room, haven't got to that point yet because I only watched it once. Maybe if I watch it again on a second viewing, I'll probably put it on my shelf then.
Good chance.
But all the rest of the movies on here,
So in other words, since Patrick Stewart, and sorry Patrick, you ruined yourself with the beer commercial, worth a go see then.
I would recommend it.
Okay.
I even think that you could do it.
I'm sure. It's
not bad.
Well, and I like him because I remember years ago he did the Christmas Carol and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I knew he was versatile. I knew he did theater and stuff. So again, knowing there's something else to go see him do would be really cool.
All right. So, did you like any of our top 10
yes, you did.
So far? We're going to keep doing this video some more. We're going to finish up and do into our number 1, and then we'll talk about a little bit more stuff. Also, too, is just a couple snippets before you go. You see all the stuff that we have here, actually. Except for this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's my stuff.
Well, put that down. Get out of the way.
So put that out of the way.
Can't have any of that.
So, we actually have a Texas Chainsaw Massacre poster. We have a signed Kane Hodder photograph. Kane Hodder, if you don't know who he is, he played Jason from part 6 all the way to Freddy vs. Jason.
Okay.
He did a lot of stunt work. He's a really good guy, really nice guy. I've met him twice. Really, really down-to-earth guy. We also have a Jason mask, but we're actually doing a giveaway. So this is the Halloween bundle giveaway for Classy Nerd Talk. So if you want to be part of that, go to our Facebook page, /Facebook/Classy Nerd Talk, and you can enter. You can just find the pinned post and it shows where you can enter. There's things in there from like, this is Nightmare on Elm Street, Shot Glass to...
Oh, that's part of it too?
Yep. From Ash vs. Evil Dead, that we have an Ash Funko Pop.
And I'll pull this out. Tales from the Crypt are not in the...
Yeah, Tales from the Crypt is not from that.
Just so you know.
We have a couple...
The mask is though, right?
Yes.
So all that good,
a couple board games, another It poster. We also have a Silent Hill poster that's on the way. Five Nights at Freddy's and stuff, and I'm going to be getting some more stuff.
Sweet.
And also, too,
time.
right now, actually, the person that's using the prop is actually using it for a film, and we're going to have them like put shots in there that they used it for a film.
Sweet.
But actually, the prop is Lucille from Walking Dead, which is the baseball bat Negan wields that has barbed wire on it.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for that, and also we have a Funko Pop of Daryl Dixon from The Walking Dead. That's actually being thrown in. So we have so much to give away on this giveaway.
So, but before we go, when is that auction? When is that giveaway up? When
you can only enter it until the 27th. On the 27th, we have a live stream on Facebook, and we will reveal the winner of the giveaway. So,
but I'm not allowed to enter, am I?
No.
Because I'm thinking some of the stuff's pretty sweet.
Yeah. So,
especially that bat.
Oh yeah. So stay tuned. We'll talk about our the rest of our
6 through 1. We'll hit them next week for you.
So just remember. Stay classy.
Thanks, guys. See ya.